appreciate it. Elizabeth, you promised me a rant about the FISA bill.
Okay.
Can we do that? I'm really interested
go
to
there.
hear your analysis.
Okay.
I'm just going to send some tweets and let people know that we're live.
Absolutely, that's awesome. Yeah, for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, I had a little bit of a rant today earlier on FISA. It's the 702. It's the reauthorization of FISA, and I was really hoping that Trump would veto it, considering that FISA was allegedly used against him and his campaign to spy on him illegally. And and people have been blowing up with this whole the FISA memo that's supposed to be released, and who knows what the hell is in that. But I was angry because it basically is an excuse. It's a reauthorization of a law of legislation that I believe was implemented first in 2008 under Obama, and it's widely regarded as something that is misused to then spy on Americans illegally. And I was really, really hoping that Trump would veto it. Obviously, he didn't. And what's really, truly disappointing about this as well is it's seeing like Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept pointed out in his article when it was passed a few days ago or a week ago. Initially, he said he observed really accurately that the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, that a lot of us anti-establishment, or independent journalists and independent media have been criticizing for months and months and months, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz and a whole, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. And they were 100% behind this FISA reauthorization. And not only that, but when some independent libertarians like Rand Paul would have attempted to filibuster it, they prevented that. And so it was kind of, ramrodded through. And I was and the reason I went on around on Twitter wasn't just that I didn't like this legislation being passed and then signed into law again. It's that to me it was sort of a symbol of not only the deep state being empowered, but also the president who was elected as a populist sort of person and who was viewed at the time as anti-establishment or a threat to the establishment, and him sort of completely doing an about face and passing, and signing off on extremely establishment deep state legislation. And so there's that. And then that, as I think Caitlin Johnstone has said, that adds to his aggression in Syria and some other things that have just been very, very pro-deep state. So disappointing, hence my rant.
Okay, so can you catch me up on what release the memo is about? I saw a couple of short clips of senators in the US who said that they had read a memo that was shocking and it was the worst thing since Watergate. But do we know anything about what's actually in it?
Yeah, I don't think we do know what's in it. At least as far as I'm aware, and I've had a few IRL things happening, so I'm not completely up to speed on that like I'd like to be. But as far as I am aware, nobody's certain what's in it. And in fact, what I do know is that WikiLeaks has put out a tweet asking people to leak to them the contents of the bill. So if WikiLeaks posts it or if somebody leaks it, I'm sure we'll hear about it. But apparently, journalist Sarah Carter, who's a great independent journalist, as far as I'm aware, she wrote an article talking about the fact that it is explosive, but she didn't reveal what the contents were. So we're all just waiting on whether or not that memo will be released. And it sounds like it's going to be amazing if it is, but we'll just have to wait.
I briefly saw some reporting from Glenn Greenwald about it. And he was openly calling on Trump to declassify the memo. Oh, and he was specifically calling out Donald Trump Jr., I believe, and saying, like, there's 4 different ways that you guys could get this out if you wanted to, if it really does contain information that is, as serious as Watergate or more serious than Watergate, then that needs to happen, which is why I briefly sent a tweet tonight for the same thing as you did, I think, just calling Donald Trump out and saying, it was interesting to me that release the memo, the hashtag was trending and that tons of MAGA people were tweeting to that hashtag. And they were saying the shutdown is just a distraction. Don't pay attention to that. Focus on release the memo. So I went off to Donald Trump's timeline, which is not usually what I'd consider a credible source of information, but I went to check out like what is he, because I was sure he must have something to say about this. If it really does debunk like Russiagate or whatever, surely he's got something to say about it. And then his timeline was just all shut down, and even tweets about how he's working with Schumer and working with the Democrats.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like there's this about face that has happened in the last 6 months, I think, of the first year of his presidency, especially. He's become more and more apparently pro deep state from his actions and his words. I mean, I'm not making a judgment on it other than to say that's what it looks like to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, what it seems to me is that they're battling over who has control of the intelligence agencies, but they're not battling the intelligence agencies.
True. Very true. Well, and the danger about this too is it goes beyond, do you think it would be a good idea for Trump to have his own deep state or control of the deep state? The problem is that when you sign or reauthorize legislation like that, it's then allowing the next president and the next generation of deep state to undermine democracy and privacy rights even further. Right. So this is not about Trump. It's about allowing that deep state to continue to have the powers that it does, and etc.
And so Obama was able to do what he did because of George W. Bush.
Exactly. It just builds and builds. And, they're different. And this goes back to the whole problem of, yes, they're on different sides of the political aisle, but they all allow the deep state to encroach on our rights. It's a horrible drip of actions that are not good for the people. So.
Right, I totally agree with you. So each president, regardless of whether they're Democrat or Republican, is empowering the next president to do even more horrific things.
Yes, and as we've discussed before, the same deep state that exists through those presidencies benefits, and that's about all that benefits. So.
Yes, this is live, Mr. Misanthropic. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Nice to see some new names and faces in chat. That's always so awesome to see.
Cool. Okay, so my little news is that there are a lot of people who are becoming interested in this series, but who haven't been with us for the last 23 episodes. So I have started to post annotated and time-stamped versions of DecipherYou in sequential order on Steemit. So now the Steemit audience is currently up to episode 2. So I thought it might be interesting for you guys to have a quick look at it. I might just bring it up and show you. And the reason is because it's providing a really good recap of what their findings were in each episode. So I'm just quickly going to show you what I've done, because I think it's probably really helpful for you. So if you go to my Steemit blog, which is... Let me find it really fast for you.
While you're doing that, I'm just retweeting your tweets about us.
Cool. Okay, I'm just sticking my Steemit blog address in chat. And I'll just quickly show you the first 2 that have gone up. Okay, so Finding Hidden Gems in the Snowden Files, DecipherYou, episode 1. So that little image at the top is actually the DTube video. So if you click on that, it will take you to where you can actually view the episode. DTube is like Steemit's version of YouTube. It's pretty cool, actually. And then below, I've given a little description for people of what DecipherYou is and why I'm reposting this content. And then if you scroll down, the interesting part is where it says viewing guide. So episode 1, viewing guide, and then it has the timestamps of I haven't timestamped every document that we studied in the episode. I've just timestamped the significant findings. So in the first episode, there was the trade jargon where we learned all of the terminology that the NSA analysts use. Then there was the revelations that the war on terror is literally being operated on Dell workstations, Oracle databases, and Microsoft, I can't even say it with a straight face, Microsoft Exchange server. Then there was where we went through the NSA's hunt for a downed pilot from Gulf War I that they're still looking for like 14 years later. Then there's the NSA strategic forecast. This was one of the most significant findings of the series. It was where I discovered the NSA had listed Europe the expanding EU is the exact words that they use, as being more of a threat than China or terrorism, which is something you never, ever, ever hear them admit in public, ever. So basically, the economic threat of the euro to the US dollar was considered more of a problem than terrorism. And this was in the height of the Iraq War in George W. Bush's tenure. That's what the NSA were really focused on, was trying to destabilize the euro. Then there was the lesson in OPSEC where they're talking about the different OPSEC practices that the NSA employees needed to use. Then there was the stuff about mobile networks and anonymity threats. They're trying to tackle anonymity as far back as 2004. Then there was an amazing document from the Balkans about generals who were crapping themselves because they thought that there was a very real chance that they were going to be charged with war crimes because of what the US had done there. And they were having to get generals like at that high rank sign off on every single individual operation because they were so concerned that their teams below them would end up being charged in international court. Then there was the revelation that the NSA is targeting people based on machine translated Arabic. So they weren't even having like properly trained linguists translating the Arabic, the machine translating it. And then the revelation that one of the NSA managers said that they were distressed by the condition in which many of the NSA staff were working, that they were overworked, that they were in cramped spaces, that they were in intolerable working conditions, which I thought was pretty significant as well. So now rather than have to like go back and review the entire 3 hours or whatever it is, you can actually just cut to the specific timestamp and just look at the part that you're interested in. So then I did episode 2. I've just posted that today. And again, there, click at the top to see the video. Or, I mean, you can look on, you'll find it on YouTube as well. And then here's the viewing guide for episode 2. So first up in the episode, the NSA admitted that the US military is in West Africa for oil, that the military is being used to ensure the flow of oil to the US and its allies. It remains unimpeded, is the words they use in the document. So it was blatant admission that soldiers are being deployed for no other reason than economics, for securing resources. Then there was a section about target technologies, different technologies being used by targets, a section about the NSA cryptologic support team for the White House, which might be rather significant at the moment. Then there was a testimony by an NSA executive who was saying that in order to be a successful manager or executive at the NSA, you needed to have total amnesia regarding real or perceived wrongs at the NSA, which is pretty scary. There was some information about NSA having commercial relationships with American universities. So they're basically customers of American universities. They also use them as recruiting tools. Then an NSA employee talking about raving, in fact, about how successful the Iraq War was and what a wonderful war it was, which made us wonder how they would actually feel about that now in retrospect. And then there was a section on the Target Analysis Center, which is the first information that I really came across that broadened my perspective of what the NSA processes are for targeting people and what it is that they do and how they do it. And there's been a lot more information on that in the coming episodes. So my master plan is that every single day I will publish one of our past episodes to Steemit and have that the timestamp details of what it contains. And I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. One, to try and catch people up on the episodes that are unfamiliar with the series. And 2 is so that we can go back retrospectively after the fact and be able to pinpoint exactly what we discovered, which episode it was discovered in, when it was discovered, match it up with the source document. So it will really help us with our reporting process as well.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of our efforts here, is to show the process of journalism. And part of journalism is also going back and analyzing what you've found in the past and putting that together as part of the larger picture. And what you're doing is incredibly valuable for not only us, but like you're saying, anybody that is interested in the results of our findings, either that needs to catch up on what we've gone through so far, or wants to go back and have access to individual points. I mean, it's hugely valuable. The fact that you're writing down exactly at which time in each video we find it, or you find a different item of interest. So